Hello and welcome back to Highwheel Woodworks. Tim Eggers here. One of the questions I oftentimes get when I'm instructing people on joinery is, how do I get rid of the glue that might end up down in that sharp corner there of a 45 or a mitered corner that I put together? Well, obviously the first answer is don't get it there in the first place. How I typically address that is I'll take my joint and I'll put glue on there and I'll keep it off of about the last 20% of that joint so that when I put it together, the glue won't squeeze out of that corner, so it doesn't end up being an issue at all. Assuming that I've sanded these nice and smooth, I don't want any glue there if I can help it, but when it does get in there, the easiest way to address that in some cases is just to take a slightly damp cloth and go in there and wipe it out. The only issue with that is typically, again, as you've sanded these inside corners here, that moisture getting in there will tend to raise that grain a little bit, so you'll have to go back and lightly sand that to get it nice and smooth, or you'll take a card scraper after it and get it out of there with that. One of the other options is, of course, to take an offset chisel like this and be able to go in there and pare that glue off of that corner, coming in at it from both sides. That assumes you have room in your joint in order to get in there and do that. Well, that one needs to be sharpened. One of the other things that I oftentimes do is a friend of mine did this. He took an old hand plane, or an old bench plane rather, and just broke the end off of it and made it a chisel plane. Go in there and get it out with a chisel plane like that, just out of a good old everyday block plane. Sometimes what I like to do, and kind of my personal preference is, I'll take a shoulder plane like this and simply disassemble it, taking that top portion of that shoulder plane off of there. Now, this becomes a really nice little chisel plane. I can go in there and I can attack it this way and get that joint out of there. I can roll it over and get the other side out of there nice and clean. It helps me get into smaller spaces to get that glue accumulation out of that corner and all. So the first bet is not to get it in there. Take a damp rag and wipe the rest of it out. Have to go back and sand it. Take a chisel after it. Take a chisel plane after it. Take a shoulder plane, knock the top of it. Make it a little chisel plane. So that's how I address glue having to be taken out of a 45 mitered corner. So give me some comments on it, on how you do it with your shop, and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks much.